Okay, let's get to what episode is this? 5 or is this 6? This is
Six.
6. Oh, who's number? Okay, never mind. I have this weird thing that I do.
LeBron 6.
I said great ones. Anyways, okay.
Boom.
So here we go. Results Rewired, episode 6. I like to say whose number it is, and this irks me, but it is LeBron's. Is there anybody else that's number 6? Was Johnny Manziel number 6 at Cleveland? No,
remember.
he was 12, right? Who else is number 6? I don't know, man. Number 6. Athletes who were great that wore number 6.
I was number 6 as a punter with the Atlanta Falcons. I got cut, but I still have the jersey to remind me that they cut
is
me,
pretty cool.
and it
Yeah.
inspires me every single day.
6. There we go. But we said great, so
All right,
I'm so proud today. I
and
apologize.
we said athlete, not punter.
Bill Russell.
Bill Russell, wow. Okay, Bill Russell, yeah, one of the GOATs. So today we're going to talk about just a few things. One of the questions we did get asked this question was, how can a strong mindset and determination impact an individual's ability to achieve their business goals? I think that's huge there. Is it possible for leaders to truly separate their personal and professional lives? I have a strong opinion on that. I know we do, but other things, strategies for effective decision-making in business, strategies for effective goal setting and achieving success in life. But I want to talk about this one first because I think we all three have very different styles, which is I think what makes us great. And I think even in Results Roofing, the core 4 owners are very different and their skill sets are very different. And this one I think is super important to surround yourself with people I think that are like-minded, but that their skill sets are different. And so the first one is strategies for effective decision-making in business, including the role of data analysis, intuition, and collaboration.
Data. Oh, jeez.
Data don't lie, though.
Yeah, data don't lie, man. So, look, I was brainwashed at 24 Fitness. I think it happens in corporate America in general. You know, obviously, in the early days of 24, it was very much, I'd say, an entrepreneurial spirit. And, you know, we didn't have a tremendous amount of data in the early days. But as my career accelerated, as the company grew up and matured, and the suits and the MBA guys entered into the organization, it was a company that was, you know, just mesmerized and possessed by data. I always joke is that if you look at a general manager in the health club business in the 90s, they were not in their office very much. They were out with the people, right? They were out with the team members. They were out with the members. If you look at GMs in 2010, they would get to the club, go to their office in the morning, and they wouldn't resurface out of their office till mid-afternoon. And the entire morning was looking at data, player by player. You know, looking for those data anomalies, looking for those areas of opportunities. Once you've dissected the data, you can find the anomaly, the area of opportunity by player. Then you're going to know what to coach on, right? Well, okay, here's the answer to that. You don't need any of the data. Go sit in the sales area all day, say nothing, and just listen. And I promise you, by the end of the day, you're going to know what's right or what's wrong. So with that being said, I was very much brainwashed into the importance of data. As I became an RVP, I was consumed with it, and I was consumed with it for many years after I left 2-4, because that's what they teach you, right? But in the end, you know, now with our own organization, you know, I do look at a lot of the data here, but there's a whole lot of data that I ignore and that we don't focus on because it's not important. So in the Roofer Bro universe, it's, okay, how many doors did they knock? We should know that by player. Okay, what's their conversion rate, their close rate by player? You know, you could get lost in all that garbage. Hey, at the end of the day, we only look at builds and contracts, the result, right? We look at the result. That is it. So, you know, I would just say this. I was very much mesmerized by data for years and believed it, and I would have preached that it was the most important thing. You know, now being through everything that I've been through, yeah, data is important, but it's not the most important thing. It's, you know, you just spend time with your people and you'll know what the areas of opportunities are.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, Jason. When you brought up, I always have like a template for things that I used over the last 2 decades in corporate America. You brought up effective decision making. I have 6 steps to effective decision making, but I'm gonna talk about that. I'll say the steps real quick. Number 1 is identifying the goal. It's like, what do you want to achieve, or what problem do you want to solve, right? Number 2, it's what you just said. It's gather information. It's gathering the data. And then number 3 would be evaluate the options, compare and contrast pros and cons with it, choose the best option, implement the decision, and ultimately that in which you don't measure becomes ineffective, right? But to your point, it's, the data and the KPIs, which we talked about in a podcast before, is, you can hide behind that. And my discovery is that you can manipulate most of the data.
Yes.
That's the problem.
Yes.
When you can manipulate
And that's all
most
salespeople do.
of the data, it's irrelevant, right? But, when I think about effective decision making, you hit the nail on the head. It is the ability to observe. It is the ability to be able to be an effective coach. Like, for example, if I'm a golf coach and I'm teaching Dustin how to hit a golf ball straight and you're slicing the ball, I can easily say, well, your hands are in front of the ball, your stance is open, your swing is outside in. So clearly that's why you're slicing the ball. Now, that's what I call decision making based off of hyperbole. That's most likely what is happening. But if I get behind you and I watch you hit 50 balls, I could probably identify something uniquely different than what the hypothesis may be, right? So, effective decision making is, to your point, being able to be a great coach. It's seeing things as they are, not seeing things on a piece of paper. And that's where a lot of leaders make poor decisions, is because they are managing from a mile high. They're not in the trenches. They're not in the field with the teams, and therefore people are being assessed and decisions are being wrong most of the time, or many times.
You should manage with data, not from data. If you observe some of the things, you can take a look and it can back up. But yeah, the data is very minimal, and it doesn't tell the story, right? I look at how much money people are making. This is effective in our world. It's like, how much are they making, right? Like, how much are they making? Who cares about all the other stuff, right? It's how much money are they making? Are they happy, right? And are they happy with where they're at? And so one of the two that you guys didn't touch on, though, is intuition and collaboration, which I think are so big. I think so many people manage through data because they don't go off their intuition. And as humans, we're built to be survivors, right? When we get uncomfortable, our body tells us. When we like something, our body tells us. And so I think you got to, like, so many people, they don't go with their gut. And it's like, trust your gut. Your gut's usually not going to lie. It's going to tell you pretty much what you need to know. And so you start spending so much time managing on data, it just gives you the security of, oh, well, I'm doing my job. I'm doing something. That's why so many people fall in love with systems and process. And then I think collaboration. Everybody thinks they can do it on their own, and you can't do it on your own, right? You have to be able to include other people and collab with them on different ideas, because even if new ideas are going to arise, you're going to make people feel a part of it. And I learned this a long time ago. So many leaders want it to be their idea, right? And if you have somebody else that has an idea that's maybe a team lead and they want to run something, if you don't agree with it, sometimes you still got to let them do that, right? Because here's the deal. You're going to tell them what to do. It's not their idea. They're not really behind it. They're probably going to run it half-ass at best, 50%. But if you give them their idea, they're probably going to run it at 150% because their idea, they're excited about, they came up with it. But even if they only executed at 75% of what you could have, it doesn't matter. They still executed at a high level, and that's what you can build upon. And so I've always been a firm believer of collaborating with people to get them to do things. And I'll use the example we did. We had this, this like Blitz week where we did it, and it was their idea. It was kind of back and forth. People believe it, didn't. I said, just fucking do it, right? It's your idea. You're high on, and we got the best result we ever seen in that week. Why? Because you had 2-3 people that believed in it, and then other people believed in them because their attitude was contagious, their idea was contagious, their vision was contagious, and people bought into it. And it goes back to had I gave them that idea or said we should do this, it never would have went as well, right? And so I believe that with the data is the least important part, right? The data you should analyze is hey man, it's like kind of like fitness, calories in versus calories out, money in versus money out. That's what really matters in a business world. And people want to get so caught in data this, data that, systems this, processes that. When it's all left done, you have the best system and process in the world. You have all the data in the world. But if you don't have money in the bank account as a business, you go bankrupt, right? And if you don't have it, so that's what I base off. But most of mine is actually intuition. And it sounds crazy, but I literally make a decision and just hope I get it right more than I do get it wrong. That's it. It's that simple. People are like, what? I'm like, that's what goes into it. If I come up with something, I'm running it. Let's go. So
It's heavy as the head that wears the crown, and ultimately, as you get to the top, you've got to make the decision. And to your point, that's what happens. But also, I want to comment on what you said. The ability to be consultative versus being directive, and when you brought up, it becomes their idea, they own it. Early in my career, and it took me a while to outgrow this, is because of the success that I had when I became like a multi-unit leader or leader of others. I had an expectation that people were going to do it my way. Why? Because in my mind, my way works, yours doesn't.
Yep.
Right? Think about that. My way works, yours doesn't. So it wasn't about ultimately getting the result. It was more about me and doing it the way I told you to do it, because I know that way will work. And when it becomes not them and they don't own it, therefore they don't give that full force effort. But it took me probably a decade to understand that, hey, wow, if I don't make it about them, if I don't include them in the collaboration piece of it, or in the decision making on what we're going to do and how we're going to do it, the buy-in's not going to be there.
I just believe that great leaders minimize people's weaknesses and maximize their strengths, right? And they have the ability to get the best out of people. They have the ability to take what they're good at and maximize that and put them in situations to be successful and minimize the risk, minimize their shortcomings. They don't worry about what they don't do well. They're focusing on what they do well. And that's what leadership is. And even if it's not me, I want to get it right. I don't want to be right. And I just couldn't care less about being right, because at the end, if somebody else can effectively do it better than me and we get it right, then I win in the end. So it's not about that. It's letting your ego go and being able to let other people do what they do and trust them. If you're such a great leader, if you empower them to be there, then you should be able to support them in doing it, whether they do great or they fail. You're the one that empowered them to even be in leadership. So if you don't trust them to do it, then they shouldn't be in there in the first place, right? Yep. This is funny. So we talked about this one actually today in our leadership meeting, in our team lead meeting, and I think it actually, I guess it was kind of in the mind, but first part, and then we'll go into the second part. Question: how can a strong mindset and determination impact an individual's ability to achieve their business goals? And we just talked about this in our team lead meeting about having a goal. But again, how can a strong mindset and determination impact an individual's ability to achieve their business goals?
Yeah, it's you have a choice to live a life by design, or you have a choice to live a life by default. Living life by design is seeing where you're going, having a goal in all areas of your life, and seeing yourself achieving that goal. And then you start working towards it, right? And so, that's what a purpose is. A person is, whether it's emotional, whether it's spiritual, whether it's your physical aspect, whether it's a financial element of it, is that you've got to see yourself and be a visionary. You got to be able to see yourself being successful. And then when you see the end in mind, then you can kind of work towards that. So it's like, and that's living a life by design. And come heck or high water, you will do anything and everything to make sure you accomplish it, and nothing will get in your way. Adversity is going to happen. We understand that, but how quickly can you get back up and get back to what your purpose and what your goal is? Now, when you don't have that, or if you haven't communicated that, then you live a life by default. And that's just showing up in life and allowing a life to happen to you.
Yeah, look, mindset is everything. I think when people think about a strong mindset, there's always this like direct correlation to sports, right? People get in the zone, Kobe's in the zone, Jordan was in the zone, right? Well, all they're really talking about is the mental mindset, right? You get in that belief you're going to make every shot. So I think people think about having a strong mindset. They always correlate it to sports, but I would argue in business, it's the exact same thing. Look, in business, you're going to be challenged every day. You're going to be challenged by your peers, your coworkers, your boss. You're going to run into challenges with your customers. Things are not going to go right. And it takes a mental toll on you. It really does. Like, it really wears you down. No different than an athlete in the middle of a game. Hey, the refs made a bad call. The fans are booing you, right? You drop a pass, mentally you start to get in your head, and then it just snowballs on you. Work's the same thing, right? You come to work, you walk in the door, you're in a good mood, and then all of a sudden the shitstorm unfolds and everything goes wrong, and it messes with you mentally. And so many people get consumed by that. They get caught up in the negativity. They get caught up in whatever went wrong. They have a hard time getting themselves mentally right, being able to move forward. And so, look, and our world today, people thrive on toxicity, right? People watch reality shows because they want to see other people's crazy life because it makes them feel better about themselves. And so you're at work. You came in, you're in a good mood, things start going bad, things start getting terrible. You're not in the right mental mindset to overcome that. You get caught up in the negativity. What do you then do? You go to a coworker, you start talking about all the negativity. You're throwing gasoline on the fire, and then, hey, the day's wasted. It's gone downhill. You formed a cancer inside of the organization because you've talked about all the negativity. Well, if you backtrack and just say, well, if you were stronger mentally, right? If you had a stronger mental outlook on the situation, then as those bad things unfold, as things don't happen, that you would equate to be, things that are supposed to be good, they're unfolding, they're terrible. Hey, you have a strong mindset, you can overcome that, right? You get your mind in the right place, you deal with the problem, you handle the problem. As you always say, you figure out the solution. Don't be a problem giver, but give me your solution. If you take that approach, which is all about your mental mindset, then guess what? A day that was probably going to be really bad, you can kind of overcome the obstacle and get through it, and things get better. So yeah, your mental mindset in sports and in business, to me, it's the same exact thing. To be great in business, I always say it, man, go find a great CEO, go find a great, entrepreneurial founder of a business, man. Those people are rare birds. They're just as rare as the Michael Jordans. They're just as rare as the LeBron James, right? But they all have strong mental mindsets. Like anybody that I've known that's been at the top of an organization, top flight CEO, man, their mental mindset is unbelievable.
The thing, yeah, the thing that I firmly believe is be a problem solver, not a problem giver, right? That's how you get ahead, and that's how you become super valuable. And I think your mindset has everything to do with it, right? Because in life, just like in business, everything's going to go wrong, right? And everybody has problems, and you have to fight through it. It is like being an athlete. I think we can all agree. People can hate all they want, but if you want to put people in the categories greatest basketball players ever, Jordan, Kobe, LeBron, right? Football, Tom Brady's, the Joe Montana, Tiger Woods in
Troy
golf. If you want to go to other sports, the point is that Troy Aikman's not in there. But if you want to go to the greatest football players, Tom Brady, Joe Montana, I don't know, basketball player, Jordan, LeBron, Kobe, golf, Tiger Woods, they all had that mental edge on everybody, man. And when everything went wrong, they were able to get through it quicker. That's the thing, is not that things don't bother you. Things bother me. I just get through them quicker. You dwell, I get over it. And you have to have that strong mental mind of you want to know, you have to know where you want to go. And so if you don't, it is like this. If everything's important, nothing's important. And if nothing's important, everything's important, right? And it goes both ways, because if everything's important to you, then you can be thrown in a million directions. If nothing's important to you, you don't know where you're going, right? And you have to have a firm belief on where I want to go and what I want to accomplish. And I think it's preparing. We talked about it earlier. You think Kobe woke up every day. His regimen was documented about. He worked out 3 to 4 times a day. He'd go home, take a nap, get back at it, go again. Do you really think he enjoyed that stuff? Do you really think that he looked forward every day to getting up at 4 a.m. on 4 or 5 hours of sleep, body sore, his body's tired, he's hurting, he's injured, he's got stuff to do, and he gets up and goes and practice 4 times? It's because he wanted to be the best to ever do it, and that was part of the process. And so when you don't have that, you don't see that, you don't envision it, you get thrown off by what's thrown at you. And I think the mental toughness is you have to be able to get through shit. You have to be able to understand, hey, it's going to happen. Can't run from it. You got to meet it head on and be prepared that it's going to happen to you at all times. But it's what is going to get you to the next level. You're never going to be successful without going through shit, right? But you're not going to be average without going through shit. You're not going to be a loser without going through shit. Every situation in your life, you're going to go through shit, right? Prepare yourself for it. Understand it's going to happen. It's part of the process, right? And be stronger than it. I always say, don't ever let your feelings become stronger than your family. And if you have a true goal you want to accomplish in life, you can get through it. But mental toughness is it. Everybody quits, man. It's normal to quit. That's why most people are average. That's why why don't people look up what's the top salary in America? What do they always say? What's the average salary? What's the average household income? What's the average a family makes? Why do people always Google what average is? Because average is okay. You're okay with being average. Google what the top dude makes. Google what top 1% makes, right? And go after that. And you got to be mentally tough to go after that because you're going to go through shit anyways. So why not have the rewards from it, right? And talk yourself through that's going to happen. Hey, you know what? It's going to be thrown at you today. But I think as long as you could stop where everybody else ends, and that's when you're going to be successful because most people don't have the mindset. They have the poor me attitude. They have the victim attitude. They have the, oh man, life's not fair attitude. Can't catch a break bullshit. So they're not mentally strong because they go, oh man, you don't understand. You don't get it. This happened to me. It doesn't happen to anyone else. It happens to everyone. It's just some people choose not to let it break them. They break it. Now, the second to back that up, I'm going to get, what are some strategies that you could put in place for the mental toughness, right? Or the determination. Like, what are some strategy or even goal setting to achieve this in that, mental aspect, success, whatever you want to call it?
Yeah, I'll kind of start with it's your thinking. I'm going to talk about thinking. I'm going to talk about your attitude. I'm going to talk about actions. You can say that's think, be, do. So your thinking is how you think about anything is how you think about everything. And think about like two circles, right? One circle is what happened, and the circle next to that is the story or the narrative that you create on what happened. And that's what people get caught up in, is they get caught up in not exactly what happened, but the narrative that they created what happens. And so that's when you become a victim, right? So just understanding to identify what that is. The second thing when you look at it is it's my attitude, right? The attitude is, there's one thing that you can control is you can't control what people say about you. You can't control with what happens to you. What you can control is what are you going to do about it, right? And so understanding that not allowing the things to slow you down or to get in your way or not to be a victim is going to be really important. And then when you think about, just the actions in which you take, it's the things in which you can't control, right? And things in which you can't control is, hey, I can control that I have daily disciplines. I can control what time my alarm clock goes off. I can control getting in the cold plunge and overcoming probably the biggest fear, 36 degrees this morning?
34.
That was 34. My toes were freezing. Wanted to quit after 2 minutes. I'm going to tell you right now, going from 2 minutes to 5 minutes was a lifetime. And I wanted to quit every second of the day. But I knew that discipline of not quitting, between that second minute and that fifth minute was going to get me through the day, right? And so that's the attitude in which you could have. And then you think about the workouts. It's not about the workout. It's about the camaraderie. It's about the brotherhood. It's about showing up, and not just showing up for yourself, but showing up for others so other people will show up. And so having these daily disciplines and understanding, your thinking, your attitude, the actions in which you take every single day. As a leader, everything communicates, and people are watching you, and and you want to be a positive role model for them.
100%.
Read me that question again. Strategies.
Yeah, strategies for like the mental toughness life. And I'll go and maybe get it. So like strategies on it, because like, look, it's going to happen, right? And it's easy to say, you got to be mentally tough, right? Like, so we can all say it. But I'm a new entrepreneur, or I'm new in the business world, right? And I'm like, man, this shit sucks, right? This is terrible, and this sucks. I want to quit. My boss is a fucking idiot. They don't pay me enough. They don't appreciate me. I'm never gonna get ahead here. They don't like me. They play favors. We all know it because we've all felt that way. So the point is like, I'm new in the business world, and that's what I'm feeling. What are some strategies to get over that, right? And so for me, I was that guy, right? I was that dude that did all that stuff. I was the guy that thought my boss was against me, right? I was the guy that worked in the workplace and said, man, I'm never going to get ahead here because they don't want me to win. Newsflash, your boss wants you to win. There's no world where your owner wants you to fail, because if he's the owner, he wants you to win, right? What are some strategies? What I start doing, first thing is change your fucking circle of influence, right?
Yes.
That's the most powerful thing you can have. Look, if you look around and there's 5 people that you talk to the most, and every one of them are complainers, it means you're a complainer. If every one of them are losers, it means you're a loser. If none of them are successful, it means you're not successful. If all of them are talking about other people, including the people in their circle, they're talking about you, and that's because what you do. You gotta change your circle of influence, because when you get down and you have that split second thought, the people around you are gonna influence you what direction you go. It's like a fork in the road. And if you have a bunch of complainers and whiners and bullshitters, they're gonna keep you down that path. If you have some dudes, shake it off, get your ass back in there. It's okay. You got this. That's the direction you're gonna go. One, it's your circle of influence. And we saw this recently here at Results. So we have our little group, and we had another group that set out a little workout group, and all three of those people are no longer in the organization because they all had very checkered past. None of them had any discipline, and they're all with victims, right? They point the finger at everybody around them. Within 30 days of them starting their little workout group, all three of them are no longer in the company because their sphere of influence wasn't for each other. We have a workout group started with 2 or 3, and now it's grown to 12 to 15. And man, it's some gangsters in there. It's people giving the good word every day. It's people encouraging each other, being better. It's people not only holding people around them accountable. What I love now is people are actually owning their own shit and holding themselves accountable. We're men creating men in this group, right? Our circle of influence, including myself, is like, look, man, you don't fucking quit on your team. You don't fucking quit on yourself, and you don't fucking quit on your family. I don't care what you're going through. I don't care how you feel. I don't care if you're tired. You get your ass up and you do something, and you're going to get a little bit better today. Our circle of influence is powerful. It doesn't allow us to talk about other people. If we are talking about other people, we're saying good. If we're talking about other people, we're holding them accountable. If we're talking about other people, we're talking about how we can improve. We're trying to build, everybody's building the biggest in town, right? We're not tearing each other down. And so that circle of influence is so powerful. I would say that's the first thing. Check your circle of influence. And if you got to be by yourself, fucking be by yourself, because that's going to be better than hanging out with a bunch of losers. And the second thing is start preparing yourself for those situations, man. So many people aren't prepared. They're living this life kind of walking on eggshells of like, I don't want bad things to happen to me, so I'm going to try to avoid them, right? And here's what happens when you avoid conflict, negativity, or problems. You spend your whole life running, and you're running the wrong direction because the conflict, the problems, and everything bad ahead is just a roadblock to success. And so when you're running from them, you're getting further from success. You got to hit them head on, right? But the reason you don't want to is because you're scared, because you don't know what's going to happen. So I would say you gotta start preparing for them. Like, read books. If you're like me, you don't like to read, do the audio version. Listen to podcasts. Listen to people that have done what you've done, right? One of the things I did some mentoring with Patrick Bet-David, and why I believe in him is not just another guru, is because I see so many gurus out there that haven't done shit with their life. They've never opened a business. Never ran a business. This guy started a business by himself, absolute gangster, grew it to 250 million plus, sold part of it. He's doing his podcast. I respect the man that does that because he did what I'm trying to do. So when he speaks, I listen. So listen to people that are doing what you're trying to do, or maybe been through the problems that you're going with, because then when it comes up, you're like, oh, there is hope. I'm going to survive this. And you're prepared for it, right? You're listening to these books, and it's like you're practicing, to go back to sports. You're practicing a free throw. You're practicing when these problems come up, right? So when they come about, you're like, oh man, I've already seen this before. This ain't that big of a deal. I can get through this, right? So you're reading things to keep you in the right direction, right? And so I would just say, for me, if you do those two things, it's going to change your life dramatically, man, because you kind of know what's already going on, right? You've got advice from people that have already been there, that have already done it. And I would just say, the last one, what I think is the most powerful that brings all this together, is you got to talk to yourself and understand who you really are. So many people are so scared of what's going on in the world because they're afraid they're going to be exposed. They're living a lie. And the reason they're living a lie and they don't want to get out of the lie or talk to themselves about it, because they have nothing else in their life. And as long as they have the lie, that's better than not having the lie. So they're living this life that they don't know who they are. They don't know what they want. They don't even know anything about them, right? You got to know who you really are. Once you know who you really are, you stop worrying about most of the shit, because what you realize is everybody's got that same shit. And they're not really trying to expose you. They're just trying to keep you at a distance. So understand who you really are. Because once you know who you really are, man, shit doesn't really bother you as much. When somebody does something, you're like, man, that says more about him than me, right? And I would just think, if you do those three things, it's going to create a mental, strong mind where you're going to be able to push through problems and just understand, hey, up until this point today, every bad thing I've ever been through in my life, I have a 100% track record of surviving it. There's a pretty good odds I'm going to get through this too.
Yeah, just to expand on what you said, because I agree 1,000%. It's, you got to look at your circle, but I would just say for everybody that listens, it's, start with audit your current circle. And so break it into 3. Start with family, right? Then your friends, and then your coworkers. And so just audit, look at your family. Who in your family are you spending the most amount of time with, right? Look at your friends, same thing. Who are you giving your time to, right? And then your coworkers. Inevitably, there's going to be people that you work with that you start to hang out with. And so identify who those folks are for all 3. Then audit, self-reflect on the people that are in those groups. What's the allocation of time that you're giving to those folks? Then the hard part is, okay, evaluate each one of those individuals, and are they a positive influence on your life, or are they potentially a negative influence on on your life, right? And so inevitably, and let's just do the easiest one, the people that you work with. If there's 5 people that you work with that you're hanging out with, and you audit those 5 people and you determine, hey, one of them is a really positive influence. Their career's going great. They're on a really good path. Maybe they're ahead of you in position and money. And then you look at another one on that list and, hey, their career's not going so great. They're constantly bitching and moaning, complaining. Once you go through that activity, you're going to know, right? You're going to know the changes you need to make. And inevitably what happens, and, I found myself, is that sometimes I'm giving time to people that I shouldn't be giving time to, right? And you underestimate their influence on you. You underestimate on how they're potentially submarining your thought process, your mindset, how they're affecting your life, your career. Obviously, the most difficult one is the family component, right? Because there's people inside of your family that, you probably have to spend time with. And then there's people in your family that maybe you don't have to spend as much time with, but you choose to spend time with. You got to really audit that. And look, there's, everyone's got it. Sometimes there's people in your family that are a really positive influence on your life. And then there's people in your family that are not, but you feel obligated to spend time with them because they're family. Hey, straight up, I can tell you there's people in my family that I cut out completely. Like, line in the sand, I will never spend time with you again, right? Period, over my dead body. And so that's the most difficult one. Friends, the most painful one is also friends, right? Is there going to be friends that you have to be honest with that you shouldn't be giving your time to, and it's going to potentially really hurt to cut them out also, but you're going to be better for it. At the end of the day, it's what your circle becomes smaller. My life has gotten better the smaller my circle has gotten. Like, it really has. It has gotten infinitely better. And then the time that I am giving those people in my small circle, man, it's really quality time. It's really good stuff. So I would just say audit that first. Like, take a hard look at your life and look at those 3 areas and really evaluate the time that you're spending with folks, and are they positive or a negative influence on your life?
Yeah, because I just remember chasing success, and I spent all my time trying to chase success. And then now that I've caught a little bit of success, I spend all my time trying to get more time, right? And it's the most valuable thing in the world is time. And so I'm not going to waste it on someone else. And I've been told, especially recently this year, like, you changed, you're not the same Dustin you used to be. And I'm like, no, man, you're right. I'm not. Yeah. I don't want to be that guy again. I don't want to be that dude sitting on the bench watching other people play the game, complaining why I wasn't in there. It's because I wasn't doing the fucking work that needed to be done to get in the game, man. That's why. Right? The game doesn't lie. The game's going to make you put some respect on its name. And so I did change. I stopped hanging around people that were doing those same things. You don't get the same access or time to me anymore because you don't want to better your life. It's not that I have anything against you. It's just I'm chasing a dream, and I want people surrounding me that are chasing that dream. And maybe we're not chasing the same dream, but if you're chasing a large dream, we're probably going to need to work on the same things, right? And I want people around there that are going to help hold me accountable and elevate me, not trying to bring me down. I'm also not egotistical to like, oh, you always got to look for a hand up, right? And if you're always constantly looking for somebody to bring you up, who are you bringing up? I want to bring people up with me, man. Like, I want to bring people along for the ride, but I'm only going to bring the right kind of people. If you're not going to have the right mindset, if you're not going to work on getting better, then you're not going to be around me. And sorry, don't take it personal, man, but I just don't want to be around you. I want to work on these things with the people, and I'm very selective with those people. And, it's like we're going to talk business. We're going to talk life. We're going to talk being better professionally, personally, growth, goals, everything. Like, I drink one time this year. I used to drink every weekend. 3 times a week. I've drank. Well, I've had 1 sip of alcohol this entire year, right? I'm just not the same person and I don't want to be, because I realize what it takes. Your time is so valuable, man. And if one wasted 15-minute conversation could have been spent on a 15-minute conversation with somebody that was going to change your life, that next opportunity could have been the one that changed your life. But you're too busy wasting on fucking Joe Bag of Donuts, as Dupe would say, sitting around playing fucking video games, not doing anything with his life.
Yeah.
And he's complaining to you about how the world sucks when he hasn't got off the couch in 6 months. I don't want to be around that guy, man. But I do have one which I think actually fits into what we were just talking about too, about how this whole thing comes together. And this was a question. Somebody recently asked me this, and it kind of hit home for me, because obviously as a father and, you know, somebody that loves my family, I love my wife and kids more than anything. It was, is it possible for leaders to truly separate their personal and professional lives? Have a buddy, just, you know, he's a newer entrepreneur, opened a company. He's kind of doing it as a little side hustle. So he's still working his full-time job. You know, he's putting in a 40, 50, 60 hours a week sometimes, but now he's an entrepreneur too. So he's got both. And he just said, hey man, I see you always with your kids. And he was like, so how many hours are you working on? Probably 100. He's like, what the fuck? How? And I'm like, but that's all I do. It's either work or with the family. But he's like, I see you sometimes with friends. And I said, hey man, in almost 4 years of having Results Roofing, I have not been on a trip that hasn't had something to do with the RR brands. Everybody that's gone on trips with me works with us. Goes with, I've not done anything with quote unquote friends outside of RR. And he said, is it possible to truly separate the two? And it actually triggered me to think. And so I was like, wow, man, like, can you? And I think it was asked to me, and I'll go first and I'll let you guys think on it, because the question there was, I think, why would you want to? Right? I have this vision of building this life I've always dreamed of, right? And I believe, why would I want to sleep on my dreams when I can wake up and go work for them? And when you're living the life that I'm living, and when you come from where I come from, whether it be sleeping on a park bench at 14, going to bed hungry, coming through this just childhood that wasn't the best, I feel like I'm on borrowed time, and I'm so grateful for this life. Why would I want to sleep on it? And why would I want to waste the opportunity that I've been given? And why would I want to separate those lives? Why would I wouldn't want my friends to come along the journey with me? Why would I want my family to be on the journey with me? Why would I want to have 2 separate lives? And I think what keeps it so great for me is my kids love Results Roofing. We went to dinner last night, and my 3-year-old's wearing a Results Roofing polo. My 6-year-old talks about results all the time, his office. My wife does. And why wouldn't I want her a part of that? Like, you know, I'm very proud of my wife. She's friends with, you know, all the roofer wives. And why would I not want her to be friends with them and share those visions, right? Because, you know, we have a lot of people that work here that have made a lot of sacrifices and a lot of time, effort, and energy, and they go home and, you know, it's like maybe they're mentally exhausted. I don't want to talk about work, but what if my wife's friends with their wife and can share our story of where we came from to where we're at and the whole vision, and they feel included in that. And now they're encouraging their husbands to work harder because they know that life that's right around the corner, right? Instead of like, you know, well, I don't know anything about my husband's work. Why not, right? You're part of that, because without my wife taking care of the kids and taking care of a home, I couldn't be able to do what I do. So people think, well, you work, you make all the money. Hey man, without this, there is no money, right? And so without my wife doing what she does, and look, people that I work with that I didn't know before have become not only friends, but have become family. And then people that I've known, you know, there's multiple people here that I've known for 15 plus years that are friends that now became in the work world. And now they're, you know, co-workers, but they're friends and family. You know, Jason, known Jason for years. He's the godfather to one of my kids. Like, it's become family, but it started in the work environment. And I believe that, why would you want to separate them unless you're living a fake life? Unless you're not really who you are at work and you're not who you really are at home, then why would you want to separate them? Because I think you become not what you are, but you become who you are. And the world's going to give you who you are, right? And I think gratitude has a funny way of, you know, giving back to you what you give the world. And everything you're grateful for, the world's going to give you that and more, right? When you're grateful for it. And I'm grateful for the opportunity. I'm grateful for the people that I work with. I'm grateful for the people that believe in our vision. I'm grateful for the people that sacrifice family times to chase their dreams with us. And so I want them a part of that. I want to do trips with them. I want to go to Disney with them. I want to hang out with them on the weekend. I want to share our goals and dreams. I mean, listening to one of our teammates share his passion to this morning in a leadership meeting, he was crying. I started crying because as a father, I could see the look in his eyes about how he wants to be great for his kids and his wife and respect. And I'm like, why would I not want to be a part of that? Why would I not want to share that and be a part of that journey with him, his family, my family, if we're chasing something bigger? But I think it starts with, you don't want to share it because you're not chasing something that's true. You're chasing a car, you're chasing a home, you're chasing a dollar amount. So you think that by sharing that with people, they're going to take it from you. When you're sharing something and you're chasing something larger, that's fulfillment, a dream, a goal, a vision. You want to bring people along with it because you want them to feel that same way. And you want to share with them because you hope they achieve it along with you. That's what I believe. That question actually took me back because this morning, but that's my thoughts on it. And then I want to get your thoughts.
Yeah, I have a super strong opinion on this, and I'll just talk about how I've always tried to do it. So first of all, I've obviously met people that have told me over the years, oh yeah, it's, like social media. I remember when that started to get really big, and there would be people that would say, oh yeah, I'm not going to put anything work related on my social media. So I've definitely met people that have wanted to completely have a separate work life versus personal life. For me, I have a strong opinion on how I do it, right? So if I were to go back 20 years, every cool trip that I went on, like vacation-wise, cool one, was a company trip. Credit to 24 Fitness. I went to some places I never would have gone on my own. And so my wife's fondest memories of some of our trips were company-related trips, right? The next thing is that I've always tried to be very thoughtful on what I communicate to my family about work. And so I do my very best. You're never perfect, but I do my very best not to discuss anything negative about work at my house. Even today, hey man, if you call me at 8:30 and I can tell within 5 seconds it's going to be one of those conversations, I go upstairs. I go upstairs into my man cave because I don't want my wife hearing all that stuff.
Yeah.
Right. So I have always tried to be, very disciplined on not bringing the bad about work to my family because look, they don't get exposed to all the good things, right? They're not with me at work. So they don't get to see all the really cool things. And look, human beings, we are who we are, is that, again, we joke about this, is you're never going to get a call from a friend going, hey, I just drove to work and there was no traffic and it was sunny and the sky was blue and, it was a great ride in. It was awesome. Like this dude let me in to, cut across lanes and he just let me, you don't do that. What do? You call people up. Yeah, traffic was terrible this morning. I flipped this guy off. That's just inherently humans focus on the bad, right? And so the problem is that your spouse doesn't get exposed to all the cool things that happen at work. And then a lot of people don't go home and they don't talk about that cool stuff. But what they will do is they'll go home and they'll tell their spouse about the crap, about the things that their boss did that they didn't like, the decision the company made they didn't like. So then what happens is inadvertently is your spouse, your significant other, man, dude, all they hear is the bad. And then guess what? They begin to hate the company. And hey, many times throughout my career, man, I have seen this manifest at company events. I have seen spouses, significant others at a company event, say or do things they probably shouldn't have. And it's because they've been poisoned by their significant other for years in reference to the company. So for me, look, I joke is that my wife really only knows the good, right? She only knows the good things. And I remember when my 17-year career ended at 2-4, and I was having to bring home some really bad news to my wife and daughter. Hey, my career's over. Don't know really what the next moves are going to be. I mean, there was a way that I could have framed it up that would have been the raw truth, and it would have really freaked them out. But I came in and I gave, hey, look, it's ended. I'm going to move on to bigger and better things. Love the company. They, took care of me. They did right by me to the best of their ability. We're going to be okay. Life's going to be good. Let's move on, right? And so I would just say, I definitely don't believe in separating them completely into two separate worlds, but I also believe that as you combine them into one, you got to be really thoughtful as to what information you're giving your children or your spouse, your significant other about your work, because if you're not careful, you're going to poison their mind in reference to the company, and that's not good. It's not good, right? When your spouse thinks ill of the company or the people you work for, because they're only getting exposed to the bad stuff.
Yeah, really quick before you go, Greg, and I think you and I actually talked about this the other day about the change in the thought process of telling your significant other, and I think I can't remember what brought it up. I think it was we dealt with this with one of the sales reps was something about their significant other, and it's the truth, man. Like you have to be very careful. Now, I do think, right, you have to tell maybe earth-shattering news. Let's say your company's thinking about moving. Like, let's just use us for example. We want to open in other markets, Colorado, Oklahoma, Florida, and we were going to open in Florida. And we were talking to you, Jason, and we're like, hey, we really want to move to Florida. We're thinking about putting you out there. It's going to be 6 months from now. But hey, man, you're a strong candidate. Would you be open to it? That's a conversation you should probably have with your wife, because you don't want to make a decision for your company and say, yeah, I'm in. And then you go home to her and she's like, I'm not moving. Then now you're in trouble. So I do think like earth shattering decisions you want to talk to about your family, but you got to be very careful to say the bad, man, because you're right, because your family will form opinions. Your friends will form opinions, right? And they won't want you to be a part of it. And here's what happens, which tie into mental strength. If you're telling your wife or your significant other all the bad, right? And you come home one day and you're slightly off your game and you're like, man, I'm thinking about quitting, right? Which happens often. And she goes, yeah, you should.
Right.
Then you're going to be done, right? Because you told her some bad things, but you don't tell her all the good. I do the same thing. That's a tip, man. First of all, I never go home on the phone. So if I'm on the phone, I'll drive around my neighborhood for 30 minutes because I want to walk in that door for my wife and kids.
Yep.
Phone free, right? Hey, guys, love you. Kids come to the door. But when I have a bad conversation, I go in my office. And I don't want to have that conversation with somebody. And my wife's like, what happened? Oh, nothing, just talking about work.
Yeah.
Because I don't want her opinion to change of somebody here because of one mistake.
Yeah.
Because what about all the good, right? Yep. You don't see the daily interaction. And I tie it back into your significant other. If I went and told my friends every fight me and my wife got in, they'd be like, man, you need to leave her.
Right.
They'd be telling her, you should leave him.
Right.
But you haven't seen the 10 years of happiness. You haven't seen the blood, sweat, tears we put into this thing. Yeah. You haven't seen the ups and downs, and we had nothing to our name, and the kids and the childbirth, and her holding our sons and our daughter. You haven't seen all that. So that one fight, man, yeah, it sucks, but it means nothing compared to all the good stuff we've been through. And so it's the same thing in the workplace, man. If you're constantly, and think about like, if Greg wasn't working here or I wasn't, and Greg's like, we're having, beers and happy, man, that place sucked, bro. My boss was a dick. What if that guy could have came and worked for you, but he's like, fuck that place, because you're always talking about it. So I do think you have to be careful with the neg. I actually wrote that down. They should know what's going on, but just be careful with what you're sharing to them.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Dustin. It's like, why wouldn't you? But having grown up, in the corporate America arena, I was that guy. I was that guy that separated the two. And I don't know it's because I was necessarily trained to do so. I think, as you're assessing people and you have talent reviews and you have KPIs, you have all these different types of things, yourself as you're being judged by the people above you as well. And so for me, there was an aspect of not bringing that home. And look, my wife was with some other wives the other night, and they were having some drinks, and there was some interesting conversations that she shared with me that was taking place. And I felt good because she's like, hey, look, my husband's never brought any negativity at home in 15, 17 years that we've been together. Yeah. So I'm like, and it's for all the reasons in what you're saying, right? But so for me, it's about what I've learned in the 2 decades when I worked in other companies is I learned it was very difficult to truly build relationships. You wouldn't let people in whatsoever. And so you kind of kept your guard up the entire time. When you have your guard up, it's hard to lead people because people don't know where you're coming from. And so why that was, I don't know. I mean, I'll take full responsibility and accountability. But look, since I've been here for a couple months, where I'll give you honor, Dustin, is, how many CEOs invite anybody that is willing to come to their house and work out at 6 a.m, right? I've never seen that. How many CEOs will, really put people first and care about a lot about the brotherhood? Because what we know, what you said earlier, it's not about the workout. It's about giving the good word at the end of the workout. I mean, why I show up, I mean, I'm 5 minutes from Lifetime Fitness, so I could not to give them like kudos or anything, but why I show up is like it's more for that word and more for that brotherhood than anything else. And then you can see deep bonds, relationships that are forming. And so when you have that type of connection and you're able to build relationships and you let people in, you want to share that positivity with your family. You know, they can see that pouring out to them. And also, this is a company to where, you know, it's more than just roofing. I mean, there's multitude of businesses that will continue to grow inside this. And yeah, I want to teach my kids because look, I grew up dirt poor. My parents got divorced when I was 4 years old. I lived in the trailer park. We were so poor that the church had to bring us food, and I was so embarrassed. I like hid in the closet when they brought our food. I remember like it was yesterday. And so for me, you know, the ghost in which I'm chasing is like, hey, I'm not good enough. And so my entire life growing up, you know, without a father figure necessarily in my life is like, hey, I'm not good enough. And so I want to teach my kids how to think. I want them, you know, to be in a entrepreneur type atmosphere like this where they can build their own business, teach them how to think differently than how I thought. And so for me, you know, is it separating the business? No, my responsibility is to provide for my kids. My responsibility is to be a role model for my children. My responsibility is to show them what it's going to take to be successful. I'm going to tell you right now, it's not freaking 9 to 5 working Monday through Friday. It is not that. It's not sitting at home on your computer, moving the mouse every once in a while so you can kind of collect a paycheck, which America has kind of gotten to, not to, you know, throw the dart at anyone, but it is to teach them what time I'm waking up in the morning, what time am I getting home, what does it take to be successful? And our children need role models like that. And so for me, it's, you know, we're creating businesses in which I want my family to be a part of. My wife has never been as happy as she is right now as she puts her roofer cap on, ready to talk to the neighbors and knock on some doors and have fun with it. She's never did that when I was at the other companies I was at, right? She always kind of, Jason, she always kind of regretted going to these company events. She's like, oh my God, I've got to show up and be somebody that I'm not, because if I can't just relax and be myself, I'm going to be judged. You're going to be judged, you know? And so that's the difficulty with it, right? So you got to choose, you know, number one, what we said, you've got to choose, there's a family of origin and then there's a family of choice, right? So you got to choose your family wisely, and you can choose that. You got to choose your place, your business operations, be in the right place at the right time, and the right things will happen.
Well, I understand it because like it's funny, and my question for you guys is, don't forget, is why does corporate America teach us that? Because we all learn that, right? Don't talk about work at home. Home's home, work's work. So why is that? And I'm curious that, and I have my own thoughts, but the part of the reason is I'll use Jason's corporate America guy one-on-one, and we had a company trip, and we had a guy punch another guy on the trip. And Jason called me freaking out in the morning. This guy quit. He's done. His phone's off. He blocked us. The other guy's quitting. And I started laughing.
Yeah.
And the fuck is wrong with you? And I'm like, because look, man, and you just mentioned like the wives together having drinks. It sounds like a recipe for a disaster, right? Like in the business world, it does though. That gives you anxiety, because what if something's said that's not good, right? And so for me, I'm like, the only thing I could get worse than that was maybe all the guys get together and talk about people they dated before their wives and really stir some shit up, right? But you say it's like, it could be bad, right? But here's what I know. I've made the conscious decision that unless somebody goes something like crazy, like I would say like not to get down like sexually, something like off the wall, is I'm not going to fire somebody for that, because that's life, man. People are you can't expect to be family and be in the trenches and then get upset because someone had too many drinks and acted a fool. That's life. If you went to the club, they do that too, right? So I've made that conscious decision of like, you know, those things are going to happen. There's going to be instances at like parties that, you know, maybe somebody's going to have too much to drink, throw up. Maybe somebody's going to say something stupid. But I'm like, at the end of the day, that's life, man. And so that, to me, that's part of the thing. Like I laugh because we'll have people over and the guys are sitting outside, or we're sitting, you know, by the fire. We're playing with the kids. We're sitting at the table and we see the girls in the kitchen, and bro, they're just clucking it. And we're like, man, they're railroading one of us right now. I wonder who it is. And we're like, who messed up, you know? And then one of the guys like, dude, last time. I'm like, ha, that's you, you know? But hey, man, here's what I know. we're keeping it in the family. And that's where the relationships grow, because we all have those problems. And I think too, when wives hear that other wives have that problem in that moment, it makes them feel better. We hear that as the guys, like, hey man, we all have these different challenges. And so it is a recipe that could be in corporate America be a disaster. But for me, it's like, but it's real life, man. It's authentic. It's who we are. It's what happens. And so I've risked reward. And for me, my spidey senses tell me it's always a good thing, because I want my wife to have other women in her life that are going through what she's going through. I want her to have those times. I want her to be able to, hey man, it's funny when you look over and you're like, dude, somebody's just getting railroaded because one girl's real animated, the other ones are like, yeah, girl, you're like, oh, that dude's getting in there. But that's fun for me, because I'm like, man, they're in there bonding, right? And if they're close, that's going to help the work be closer, right? And we're all chasing the same dream, and they're just as important as we are. And so have them together, have them do things, celebrate birthdays together, do trips together, do girls' dinners together. That's fun for me, man. But I do understand, because let's say, hey, man, let's just say we're two sales reps, right, or two leaders, and my wife says something to your wife about like, oh, I hate Jason. He's not a good leader. And your wife's like, what, really? If that gets in your head, and hey, babe, did you hear Jason's not a good leader? And then you have a bad thought. Like, that could happen, right? But it goes back through what you're saying, what you're spreading. But I always say, look, at the end of the day, the good's always going to win out. Love's going to win in the end. And the people that are supposed to be here are going to be here. And we're going to keep them connected. That's why I think that's probably maybe some of the reason corporate America does. But the last question before we ended is, why do you think corporate America does that? Because I was taught that too. Like, don't talk about work at home. Is it because they were such pieces of shit to us that they didn't want us talking about it?
Yeah,
what was it?
I just think it's like people were viewed as objects, not as human beings or human doings, I would say. And being viewed as objects is, look, it's there are people that what we call battlefield promotions. They were promoted based off of maybe they sold a lot, but they haven't developed leadership skills yet, competencies, if you will. And unfortunately, if they make one mistake, there just wasn't grace. Grace was not provided.
Yeah.
Right? It's that old saying is that allow people to fail forward. And so, when you have human resources and you have legal, general counsel, and, they believe in having consistency across the bow, across the organization, they don't look at things as one-offs or as individual cases. And so if Jason trips up on something, and if I don't hold Jason accountable to that, then I'm held accountable. And so then there's the fear of loss of losing your position, knowing that Jason's going to be a great teammate, but he just needs the repetitions. He needs that experience. He needs to be able to overcome just some of his challenges. And that's going to be through time. And unfortunately, not having enough time and how companies are evaluating their people. Look, they always says it's not about losing somebody, it's how quickly you can replace them. That's why they have what they call succession planning, is that, hey, this person's pretty good, keep doing good. This person's not good. Okay, put them on documentation, weed them out. Who's going to take their place? Versus let's talk about where are their areas of opportunity, what can we improve on, what are they struggling with, and let's help them through that.
Yeah, everything in corporate America is predicated off what you said, HR and legal risk. Everything. Every decision they make is predicated off of that. So the bigger an organization gets, right, the more potential exposure you have as it relates to legal challenges. And the more rigid the company gets on all of its policies to try to mitigate that risk. But this is why people hate big corporations, because once everything is about mitigating legal risk, once everything is about HR, right, the human element is removed, right? And then work is just work, right? Relationships don't matter. It's just work, right? And so for corporations, it's easier to say, well, don't mix the two, right? Keep it separate. You mentioned at a company event, they weren't fun because you had to act a certain way. And that's very true. I spent 17 years at 2-4. In the early days, company events were pretty awesome because you could be real and have fun. And the wives could interact. And you could have a drink or two. And,
Or 10.
Five or
five or
seven.
six. And it was okay. But fast forward, Year 17, man, you go on a company trip, you had to really think through everything, what you wore, what you said, right? You had to, make sure you didn't cross any lines, because if you did, somebody was getting fired. I can't tell you how many times I sat with HR after a company function, company event, or a manager had an event at their house where someone got offended and HR storming my office wanting to fire this person and that person, right? It was disgusting. And this is why people hate big corporations, right? Because at the end of the day, look, man, relationships are important. I mean, that's really the foundation of everything. The meaning of life, the relationship with your kids, with your family, with your friends, all that. That's what this whole thing is about. And unfortunately, corporations kind of push you away from all that stuff because it's just legal liability for them, right? And look, we're a young company. I used to always argue with HR to be like, okay, so we're worried about a lawsuit. Let's go. Bring it. Right? I don't want to fire this person. Look, if you think someone's going to sue us, okay, let's see. We've got really good attorneys and we're a big company. I think we'll be okay. That was always my attitude, and I got crushed on that kind of stuff. HR would just blister me on that. But look, we're a small company, and we've had things that have happened, and we've had things that are potential, risk. But our mentality is, okay, our lawyers are better than yours, and we're not going to fire someone that is a quality employee because they made a mistake. We're going to use it as a life lesson, and we're all going to get better because of it. Again, people hate corporations because time and time again, corporations will get rid of you when you make a mistake to protect the company. The company is more important than the person. That's why people hate big companies. And the reason why people love organizations like ours is, hey, we still get to put people first. We will risk the company because of people, right? Because we care about the people that work for us.
You have two options. You can manage system and process, or you can manage people. And you can't do both. And if you're going to manage systems and processes, just know that you're going to get down a corporate America role. If you manage people, I believe you're going to. I don't build businesses. I build people who then in turn build the businesses, right? I manage people. I don't manage process, because how are you going to create a process that's equal for everybody, right? We literally say, be you because everybody else is taken. So you're going to create a system and process that's going to work for everybody, even though every person's unique. Now, you can have a system and process per se for most things that are going to get you to a certain point, but every single person is different. And so therefore, you have to manage them differently. And that's how you win. I just don't manage a system and process. I manage people. I want to get to know people, and I'm not going to change that, right? If that's just who I am, it's what I believe in. It's the stuff that makes me happy. I think it makes other people happy. And I understand that people have their strengths, they have their weaknesses, and they're allowed to make mistakes, because here's the kicker. I fucking make plenty of them. And so how am I going to judge somebody on the team for making a mistake that I've probably made 5,000 times? And I want to fire them, ruin their career for what? Because somebody else thinks I should? Well, if that person feels so strongly about that, they should go open their own company, run their own company, and then they can run it that way. I just don't want to. I think it goes back to what we originally said. All attorneys in HR manage with data. But yet we want to listen to them. When we know they're wrong, but we still, HR said, the fuck's HR have to do with anything, right? What is that? I'm not listening to them. I'm not going to have, I'm HR. People are like, hey man, HR. I'm like, yeah, you're okay. Because I'm probably instigated it, right? I don't know. I think corporate America was like, if you go talk about what we really do here at work, your family's smart enough, they're not brainwashed like you, that they're going to tell you to fucking leave. And so they told you don't talk about it. So that's why I do it. But that's what we got today. Results Rewired episode 6, also known as, I'm not calling it LeBron James. Bill Russell. I know. I just was saying, not Bill Russell. But he's a Celtics. That's maybe worse.
Greg Ivey.
Yeah, Greg Ivey for the Atlanta Falcons.